Úristen! Na gyerekek, nagyon rég volt már... Sziasztok! Nagyon rég volt már gameplay. Aztán fölmentem Steamre, és most, ahogy hazértem melóból, fölmentem Steamre, és rájöttem, hogy most lesz gameplay. Játék előtt előre bocsátanám, hogy senki ne próbálja ki otthon, amit a játékban fogunk látni. Én is csak videókat láttam a játékról, de nézzük meg. Story módot kezdünk, mert állítólag nagyon fasz a story módja. Joystickozunk. Na. Új játékot kezdünk. Én se próbáltam még ki, úgyhogy lehet egy kicsit ügyetlenkedek majd a joystickkal. Vagyunk itt. Ezzel. Elmegyünk balra. Elmegyünk jobbra. Hopp. Várj, ez fejjel lefelé volt. Nem, ez így nem lesz jó nekem. Na most. Érdekes. Meg kell lenni az almát. És mivel együk meg az almát? Jaj, én értem, ez nem fejjel lefelé volt, hanem az a feje. De akkor is fejjel lefelé. Na mindegy. Megettük az almát. És kulesztünk is egyet. Megesszük a másik almát is. Na. Edd már meg. Ja, igen, nem a másik felében. Rá lehet tolatni? Ad olyan hangot, mint a kamion? Olyan kezelhetetlen. Na, megvan a másik alma is. Egyébként itt nem látjátok tőlem, de ott van egy kula. Fúj. Most menni. Most megyek, leveszem még az almát, és ettünk megint egy almát. Na jó. Tutorial kész van, remélhetőleg. Ahogy vagyunk a homokon. Igen, most mit csináljak? Ó, itt vannak helyi vagányok. És mit csinálnak a helyi vagányok? Az nagyon ilyen nagy ember. Mi a fasz, most hol vagyok?
John woke to the shrill cry of his alarm clock and lay there, rigid, his usual morning condition. But there was another reason John couldn't get out of bed. It was the weight. A weight that had nothing to do with his muscles or fat or sweaty blankets. John was weighed down by a piece of paper. The invitation to his high school reunion. From across the years, the words he'd heard in the schoolyard were still clear. You're a loser. No one will ever love you.
Így szokták kikelni te is az ágyban. Üssük már ezt a szót. Na. Kis testápoló. Menjünk fürdeni.
John needed to shower and wash off the sweaty stink of desperate sadness. They say cleanliness is next to godliness, but at that moment cleanliness was next to his prostate.
És most megyünk fogatmosni, igaz? Ezt köbb már ki. Nem lehet eldobni veled? Vagy még nem. Aztán mit csinálok? Elzártam azt a csapót. Most ezek a földön vannak? Vagy fel tud ugrani? Vagy... Hopp. Most fogad. Vagy elmegyek, kikulázom a szappant. Lehet, hogy fordító kellett volna, nem? Na mindegy. Na, végre kijött a szappan. Meg kéne fordulni. Olyan szar az irányítás. Ó! Ez már nekem fáj. Na, megvolt a reggeli. Na, fölvett valami ruhát. Fölvett valami ruhát fölvett. De most ez egy női pénisz, mert...
John had 3 months until the reunion to turn his life around. First, he needed to clean up.
Jó. Oké. Vittunk egyet. Itt egy pók. Au! Au! Ah! Oké, oké. Ja, ki kell takarítani. De ez valahogy nem jön össze.
The only reason he'd ordered so much takeout was because Angel, the delivery peen, made John feel butterflies in his testicles.
Battlefield. Jaj. Ez még mindig csörök, ezt szétkúrtam. De mi van a tévében? Nem lehet valami sprintelni, vagy valamit olyan szar rátolatni. Te esküszöm, le fognak tiltani YouTube-ra. És ezt kilőtte? Adj egyet, hogy lőjek. Tök jó, olyan, mint a Call of Duty.
John called it his study, but it was basically for games.
Mint egy vibrátor is, mi a?
Mostly.
Valahogy szedd ki onnan. Nem az. Mi a fasz? Na ez a Mac. De most hogy takarítsak ki? De jó lenne egy kicsit jobb angol tudás. És amikor felmentem Steamre, azon gondolkodtam, ki az a hülye gyerek, aki ezt megveszi. Én. Na. Valahogy el kéne nevezni. Legyen ilyen klasszikus neve, mint a János. Jancs. Ó! Jó, itt vágyal. Jó, itt vágott János. Úgy. Na. Az egyik küldetét megcsináltuk. Mr. János enni akar egy... Egy sajtot ott a hűtőben. János megette a sajtot, rá van akaszkodva az egyik orcámra. Na, János iszik is. Ennyi. Mit akar még János? Tévézni? Ezt aki kitalált, az egyszerűen olyan normálatlan ember volt, esküszöm. Ott vannak bentézők. Hol van a... Hol tudom ezt tenni? valami törik. Várj, nekem a izé kellene, nem? Ez a felmosó. Úristen! Hol kell feltörölgetni? Ott egy ananász. Hol kell feltörölgetni? Nem tudok ugrani. De ez mi? Elakadtam. Add ide. Ó. Ez nem lesz jó. Nem, az nekünk nem kell. Ennyi? Nem. Nem tudok átkapcsolni sem már. De ezekkel mi a faszt kell csinálni? Na jó van. Ó, jó, itt vágyott, Mr. János. Nem etted meg? Na, folyj be minden. Azt is. Jó, itt vágyott. Ez nem kell? Kis könyvet olvasásra. Ennyi. Na jó van, menjünk innen tovább, mert egyszerűen... Kimentünk az utcára.
John had left his apartment late, but if he caught the express bus, he might make it to work on time. John didn't really like his job, but it had two qualities in its favor. One, he could pay his rent, and two, Barbara. Currently John's top candidate for his reunion date.
Most mi van?
John noticed a moderately attractive peen waiting at the stop.
Jó napot! Nem tudod, mikor jön a busz?
He was tempted to talk to her.
Nem szól hozzám. És nem fér be. Te jó ég! Jöttünk dolgozni, igaz?
The office hummed with cold fluorescent lighting. The air was cold and stale, lifeless. How long had John worked here? Long enough to deserve better.
Na, nézzük, mi a munka? Értem! Értem, hogy ez mi. Ezzel váltom, hogy melyik fele. Legyen a hasznos. Jaj.
John was late, but he felt daring. He could sneak into the office through the archives, or he could stroll through the front entrance with enough confidence to bluff his boss.
Jó napot, főnök úr! Mi a fasz csináljak ma?
He chose the direct route.
Bármi szétkúrod a berendező. Hopp, bocs. Ne, fénymásoló! Ne! Hogy bújjak bele. Na, csináld. Várjál! Úgy. Ne! Istenem, ekkora gyökérséget. És köszönöm, meg fogom nézni, hogy kik voltak ennek a Ajajaj, mely színen? A buzogány. Meg fogom nézni ki volt kik ennek a készítői. Szavasz.
John was nearly trampled by the morning coffee rush.
Ennyi? Hopp. Megvan. Ezeket kell szétkúrni. Jó napot. Engedjetek már ki. Egyetek mekkora faszok. Akkor tolakodás lesz. Segíl bekúr, menj! Ó, seggemtől. Na. 2. Hol vannak még ilyenek? Jó kis munka ez. Itt faszkodnak. Na. Beakadtam. Engedj ki! Engedj már ki, beakadtam! Ezt nem hiszem el. Nem mehetek ki. De miért? Hallod? Engedj már ki. No.
Everyone else was hard at work, grinding away. John might actually get away
Nekem
with
is van itt
this.
egy gép. Jaj, bocs, főnök úr.
The boss. He homed in on John, deluging him with spit and buzzwords. The boss ran out of synonyms for John's failings and gave him an ultimatum. Barbara would definitely not be interested in dating John if he was unemployed. He had to get to the quality assurance
Ki
department.
fognak rúgni. Húha, lefokoztak, bazd meg. Ez mi?
There might be a faulty dildo just waiting to cost the company millions in lawsuits. John would have to test them all.
Ne! Én vagyok a teszter? És 50 darabot le kell... Úristen! 50 darabot letesztelnem.
Every atom of John's rectum began to vibrate with the frequencies of pure pleasure. His orifice was a paradise. This vibrator would end all wars. It was good.
Ezt most komolyan mondom?
That one was good too.
50 darabban? Ne.
The Prostate Pounder X900 series, the most advanced vibrator on the market. Sweet mother of no, John, that's too much pleasure for one anus to handle.
Jó. Reméltem is, hogy... Istenem, ott van egy izé. Ez kell nekem. Bocs, srácok.
John's butt hurt, but his heart was proud. If that vibe had gotten out into the world, it could have injured a customer as badly as it had ravaged his anus.
Tettünk rá jeget, meg kéne ez az első segélydoboz, igaz?
The boss arrived and congratulated John on taking one for the team and jumping on the hand grenade, or in this case, putting it up his butt. John was having trouble following the conversation because he was quite high on suppository painkillers. And then the boss said it. Promotion. Finally, the company was recognizing John's hard work and ignoring his minor faults like lack of talent, constant lateness and flatulence.
Itt a szemüvegét.
John's new office smelt like polished wood and success. John's success. Sam dropped by. He'd heard John had been hurt. John said he was fine. He wasn't a softie to complain about a mildly ruptured rectum. Besides, he had a promotion to celebrate. John had met Sam in college during a sports ball game. He'd given him some stiff competition.
Ne, úristen, így zajlik le az EB is.
Sam never acted like he was better than John. They'd started at Flesh Corp product testing together. Nothing builds a friendship like a long day of dildo mounting.
De ő hogy tudja ilyen gyorsan?
Yes, John had known Sam for a while. But John couldn't hang out with Sam. He had a reunion to prepare for. He was going out with Barbara tonight. He just had to ask her. Everyone was quiet, listening to the presentation. A good moment for John to ask Barbara out.
Mi? Nem banán.
That's not Barbara, John. Barbara agreed. Well, she nodded. Sort of. Things were really going John's way.
Oké, kicsit olyan érdekes menték. Na, szerelmes volt. Ja, nem szerelmes volt soha.
John tried to act as suave as possible and listen to Barbara talk business. He didn't want to blow his chances at long-term love and short-term sex. Barbara began to talk about monthly feedback figures, and John started to zone out, imagining him and Barbara at the reunion, a power couple. She would make his classmates sick with envy, if he could get her to tone down the boring chatter. John's balls were gripped by certainty. Barbara was the perfect date for the reunion. John thought he would impress Barbara by going behind the bar and showing the bartender a thing or two. Despite Barbara's protests that it was unnecessary, John knew that a true gentleman should follow her home. He was excited. There was still 3 months until the reunion, and he'd already landed his perfect date. All he had to do was seal the deal. Barbara thanked John for the evening and politely did not invite him inside for coffee or sex, even though John had dropped some pretty obvious hints he'd be into both.
Me?
Or just the sex. The door slammed on John's hopes. He didn't understand. He'd laughed at all Barbara's pie chart jokes. He'd listened to her boring stories. The blank eyes of the lawn flamingos were witnesses to John's shame.
Na. Kezelhetetlen ez a pöcs. Tőle. Na várj, ide kell egy kis nekifutás. Ennyi. Kitöröm a kerítését is. Hát, nem tudok menni.
John began the lonely walk home, thoughts tumbling like shoes in a dryer. He had done everything wrong. Barbara had led him on just to humiliate him.
Ne, az egy modell? Oké. Oké. Nem tudok beszállni a kocsiba. GTA-znék egyet. De jó, bementem a garázsba.
John felt empty. How could he get love? He felt like he was missing something, some key to attracting sex. But John was shooting blanks. What did Peens want? Then it hit John out of nowhere. Stuff. He had the success. He just needed to show it off. But where was John going to get all the stuff he wanted? John needed a sign. A new day, a new John. He waited outside his local buttload store for it to open, eager to spend his promotion bonus on stuff. The best way to impress women.
Oh, van cash-em! This is nigga! Na, oh! Jaj, ezt fel is kell venni. Várjál, kinyílt. Jó. Úgy, van pénz.
There's nothing like a rectum full of money to make a peen feel like a man.
Jó napot, biztos úr. Jó napot. Hopp. Bocs. Beférek itt? Biztos úr. Biztos úr. Ój, beragadtam, bassza meg. Most mi a pénzt csináljak?
Suddenly it occurred to John that he was going to make a lot of choices. And every one of those choices would tell the world who he was. Delicious. What would a date think when they sat in John's home? Comfort or style? Nothing says style like an overpriced and uncomfortable chair. John weighed up all the differences, but this was a tough choice.
Nem hallottak még a plazma tévére, vagy Ecsedi tévére? És hogy szétkúrom?
Something told John this was the TV for him.
Nem fizetem ki, előre mondom. Ezt is lebaszom innen. Ups. Bocsi.
John chose the extremely, obviously bad TV. John realized that it was only 2 months and 29 days until the reunion. Time flies. Cactus or rose? Was John a rugged hero or a romantic poet? If John grew his own flowers, then he'd save on romantic gestures in the long run. There was nothing John could take with him to the grave. Except his coffin. Death is inevitable. Style is not. John liked to get his pizza delivered. That way he could see Delilah, the delivery peen. She always made him smile. John knew that Delilah thought pineapple on pizza was an abomination. What bedding would Delilah prefer? John couldn't help wondering.
Ezt add már el nekem.
pizza sheets would show her that John could also deliver in bed.
Devoid of any sense of style, buying new clothes would be John's toughest challenge.
John felt sharp and also like a phony.
Ez így jó lesz.
John decided to go with the outfit.
Music, the food of love. Should John go retro sophisticated or just retro? John's personal nostalgia was more important than sound quality.
Every can was made of metal, pulled from the bones of the earth, wrestled to the surface and smelted in roaring furnaces. All so John could buy peas preserved in salty water and stick them up his butt. John's new purchases were on the way to his apartment. All he had to do was invite a date over. One look at all his stuff and they'd be overwhelmed with sexual desire. John felt proud and also hungry. It gave him an idea. He should invite Delilah over for dinner.
No.
John was excited. Delilah was on her way. He just needed to set the mood to romance. Classy.
Nem akarok szétbaszni semmit. Úgy. Van zene. Mondom, meg kell gyújtani a két gyertyákat. De ez hogy lehet? Jaj, ne bassz szét semmit. Rózsa.
John hoped she didn't have allergies.
Jaj, másik felével. Jó, föl ne gyújtsd a többi gyufát.
That must be Delilah at the door.
Jaj. Várjál. Add ide. Ó, bazd meg. Engedd el. Mindjárt megyek. Jó van.
The door opened and there was Delilah. John gulped down his nerves and invited her in.
John could tell that Delilah was impressed by his stuff. It was time to crank up the mood to seduction.
Most bor, igaz?
John wanted to offer Delilah wine, but he'd already popped his cork.
Azt nem fogunk inni most.
Delilah started looking as nervous as John felt. He assumed it was because she was shy too. They really were compatible. Of course, at the reunion, he couldn't mention Delilah was a delivery peen. That would be embarrassing. Delilah suddenly headed for the door. And just like that, John was alone again. Delilah hadn't even looked at his stuff. Not even the pizza bedspread. The rejection burned. John felt insignificant. He had everything he wanted. The job, the money, the stuff. So much stuff. He wanted to destroy all of it. Shove it into the abyss. His stuff didn't matter. He was a shaft in the machine. Sayonara, stool.
A lonely piston pumping away like all the others in his rigid place. Nothing special about him. Why should Delilah or Barbara or any other peen be interested in dating him? He was just like everyone else and they could tell. John wanted to be special. but he had to face the numb truth.
Jaj!
He wasn't.
Ez megszúrt.
And all the money and stuff he'd ever accumulate wouldn't change that. He thought it would make him
Ilyet
unique,
pornót nézni.
but it just made him more like
Ja,
everyone
tényleg.
else. He should leave it all. Get out of this little town and go on an adventure. See the world. He was a boring corporate drone, but he didn't have to be. He could be a traveler, exploring jungles and climbing mountains. He could visit the wonders of the world and get his picture taken. Like Peony Island, the unspoiled paradise he'd seen on TV. That was it. John had to travel. Bags packed,
No.
John was ready to put 5,000 miles between him and his problems. He was leaving it all behind.
Jaj, ne. Basszus. Majdnem. Na. Mi a fasz csinálsz? Na. Egyet dobjál? Nem mondom egyet. Na, ezt kell odaadni a... Ezt oda letesszük. Ezt ide fel. Sokkal nehezebb, sokkal nehezebb, mint amennyire látszik. Így, ezt meg ide. Mehetek én is?
John was so close. He could almost smell the freedom of the skies.
És mi van benne?
Security sent John back through the detector.
Na. Basz meg ki velem.
John had forgotten he had his nail clippers with him. He'd have to buy another pair soon, or he'd look ridiculous. When the acceleration of takeoff had slackened, John felt a sweet relief. He had left his worries on the runway. He was up in the clouds, on his way to adventure.
Nagyon érdekes, nagyon érdekes.
John's adventure had begun at last, and clearly it was a small world after all, and also a flat one. That was going to piss off the globeheads.
Most mi? Na! Jó, kaptam rá 2 lájkot. Merre a másik oldalon. Gyerünk, lőjed ezt a képet. Ez mondom. Nem lehet? De hogy kell a képet? Lőjed a képet! Húsz. Anyám! Egy like! Ezért izé! Mi színe? Buzi kígyó? Három like. Ez meg volt. Oké. Mégis adta. Várj csak. Csak nem. Jaj, itt ide van. Ne, remélem nem játszottam még 2 óránál többet, mert inkább visszaadom a picsába
John was
Steamnek.
having fun, but something told him he needed to go home. Probably his
Nem
empty
akarok
bank
haza menni.
account. John was on his way back home. He was out of money, but money can't buy love. What it can buy are the experiences that had made John a more interesting and developed person, with 100 Buckstagram photos to prove it. Finally, everything was going smoothly. John felt good to be back on the familiar ground of home, but he would feel better to be on the familiar mattress of home.
Ott az enyém. Még nem az az enyém?
That's not John's bag.
Ó. Ez az enyém. Na, bele ellopjuk a másikat is. Szavaztok. Ó, ott van egy olyan izé. Szavaztok.
Despite John's swell of fresh optimism, traveling was exhausting, and he just really wanted to get home and get some sleep.
Buszozunk haza. Suli? Ez az enyém szerintem. Ó, van benne egy szerelmes levél. Csukd már be. Csukd be. Így. Ó. Ó, ide. Na. Oj, 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 oj.
Another nightmare. John's stress about getting a date for the reunion was making him think of her. Harmony. He hadn't seen her in years. Would she be at the reunion? John shook off the thought. He wasn't a child. He was a fully grown penis.
Ezt el lehet mondani? Na jó van, gyerekek. Ennyit erről. Nagyon érdekes kis játék volt. Amennyiben szeretnétek, hogy folytassuk, akkor azt jelezzétek egy lájkkal. Érdekes kis játék volt. Ja. Köszönöm a figyelmet, észrevételeket kommentbe, aztán legközelebb találkozunk. Sziasztok!
Április bolondja, január ökre, február majma, március gyöngye, április bolondja, május szamara, július okosa, július aranya, április bolondja, augusztus gyönyöre, szeptember oskola, október örege, november dolga, hogy várja a decembert, április bolondja, sebesen bezsebel.